Come out now with your hands up or I'll send my dog. Police canine, come out now with your hands up or I'll send my dog. Stop. That's a good one. Ah!
Oh my God!
That job right back there is the best job to have in policing, if you ask me. A subscriber asked me to make a video about police canine work, so here we go. First thing is this. If you are thinking about getting into law enforcement and working in police canine, or if you're a police officer and you're wanting to apply to be canine, there is more to it than I like dogs. Oh my gosh, there is so much more to it than that. You have to understand you are signing up, particularly if you're on patrol, you are signing up for one of the most dangerous jobs in policing. Think about it. When a suspect runs from an armed robbery scene and they have a gun or a knife and they run into the woods, well, a dog could very well be used to track the suspects down, and you as the canine officer are going to be the first one to encounter that dangerous suspect. Now, obviously, there's different tactics to use. There's different ways to approach each and every situation, but police canine work can be very dangerous. So needless to say, I went on a lot of dangerous, risky calls. Fortunately, I never got hurt. My dog never got hurt, but there's a lot of dangers. I think I've made that point clear enough. There's more to it than just, I like dogs. Okay. When an officer interviews to be a canine officer, you have to understand in the interview, it is not about you. That's my piece of advice. It is not about you. The administration or whoever is interviewing you knows that you want the job or else you wouldn't have applied to it. It's what can you bring to the table using that dog as a very valuable resource to help fight crime and protect the community. So in February of 2013, finally got my police dog, the one you see behind me here, the one you see displayed right here in this photo. And for 2 weeks, he rode around with me to help build that bond, so to say. Every new canine officer has to focus on building the bond with their dog. I made the mistake of going to initial training, and after we were done with the training, I would put Romac in the kennel, and then I wouldn't spend a lot of time with him when I was home. It slowed down the process of building that bond. So my recommendation is, if you are an aspiring canine officer, you currently are getting into canine, then if you have your dog inside, tie a leash around your waist and leash up the dog, and wherever you go in that house, that dog has to go with you, because one, that teaches the dog it's your house, not their house, because they're not just free to roam wherever they want. Two, it helps strengthen that bond, which is just one more thing you can do to also help establish that you're the boss, you're the alpha, the dog is there to listen to you. But having a dog is not always easy. Trust me, the dog has to get used to the new home, used to the new handler, used to the vehicle. And that takes some time. And then there's the initial training, which has a lot of headaches because dogs are stubborn. Like the one I had, he was very hard driven. It was a nightmare the initial 2 to 3 weeks. He was so hyper. He didn't want to listen to me for nothing. And I would get angry, and then he would get anxious, and then we would just feed off of each other. Oh my gosh, it was a mess. The initial training was really something else. And I was physically exhausted at times, particularly during the aggression work, because he didn't want to let go. The whole time I had him, he rarely wanted to let go of a bite sleeve, and it was physically and mentally draining. So there's the initial training we went through. It was 12 weeks, Monday through Friday, from about 8 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon. And then when a police canine officer gets out on patrol or out on their own with their dog, whether it's a single focus drug or explosives, or it's a full patrol dog, which is what I had, and they're trained in numerous different areas, there has to be training at least once a week. And then during downtime, the police officer has to absolutely take the advantage of the downtime to help work their dog, even if it's simply getting out and doing obedience routines with them on or off leash. That helps. But when you are fully trained, when the dog is fully trained, when you and the dog start working together, I gotta say that police canine work can be some of the most dangerous but yet rewarding work. Like one time there was this guy who beat his wife, and I was very upset about that, and she was scared to death. And he ran, and it was while we were on night shift. And I even saw him while we were waiting for other officers to arrive on scene to help set up a perimeter to help catch him. But he just kept going behind a house. Finally, got the dog strapped up, got them to that starting point at the house where I last saw him. Second we hit the backyard, poof, dog was gone. I mean, running, and it was all out. And unfortunately, I had made the mistake of having a big dish of chicken parmesan at an Italian restaurant. And we ran through the neighborhood, in between some houses. My dog ran up and grabbed some shoes on a deck and started biting them. I had to pull him off the shoes. And then finally, he hit the back of the neighborhood and went through a field down into the woods. And the guy was actually hiding in a creek, thinking it was Hollywood, and the dog would not be able to find him while he was hiding in a creek. The guy was caught, went to jail, was put on a domestic hold. The wife was able to figure out what she was going to do to help protect herself. And stuff like that, where the use of a dog is very valuable. But the benefits of having a dog is you essentially have very good backup there. And there's a button that a canine officer can push on their belt that opens up the door. Or if they get into a foot chase with someone, like I pulled over a car one night for suspected DWI, 4 people just ran out of the car all at once. Obviously, I'm going to go after the slowest one. The dog also picked the slowest one to go for, which was very upsetting to me because I wanted to catch 2 at once. But anyway, I ended up catching one of the 4 that had run. That wouldn't have happened had not had the dog. And then one time a federally task force team went into my city where I was working to catch a bank robbery suspect, and he wouldn't come out of the apartment. And it was amazing to me how they had rifles, they had all this different gear. The suspect knew he was not going to go anywhere, and yet all it took was me sending in the dog to look for him and search for him, and he immediately yelled, "Don't let that damn dog bite me!" And I got the dog to come out. The person who was providing cover for me, holding his AR-15, said, "Well, if you don't want to get bit, then get out." And finally, after all that negotiation they had with him, all surrounding and tactical gear and all this stuff, and rifles pointed at the apartment because he was a dangerous person, he just comes out because the dog went in. Amazing line of work, amazing stuff. Don't get me wrong, but it can be very stressful going from violent call to violent caller, physically demanding, running track after track sometimes. And I made the mistake of not decompressing and taking care of my mental health from all the incidents that I was on. And then I let that job become my identity, and people would say, "Well, what do you do?" I would say, "I am a canine officer." I wouldn't say I work at yet such and such department and I work as a canine officer. And it got to the point where it was stressing me out. It got in the way between me and my family. And unfortunately, I had to resign from the team early because I didn't want to lose my marriage. So working in law enforcement and having a family is demanding enough. Being in a specialized unit can be that much more demanding. And I put that job ahead of my family. So that's another piece of advice I have for you. If you take on the job of working as a police canine officer, you have to also understand there's a family back home. And if you're single, then you still have to maintain friendships, be in groups outside of law enforcement. You can't just let that job and that dog be your life. And when it came time to say goodbye to the dog, it was very tough. And it's still to this day, I miss him a lot. The bond that a police canine and their handler have, in my opinion, it's more than just someone who has a house pet. Like Romac never hesitated to get between me and the person that was wanting to fight, between me and the person that could have been a threat. And yes, in canine work, there are times where it just doesn't work out. The dog will not find the suspect. The dog will not find the drugs. It happens. Dogs make mistakes, but that's why you keep training to prevent those times. I could obviously make a 30-minute to an hour-long video about this stuff, but if someone is serious about it and they understand all that's involved in it and they want to do it in the sense of using that tool to help better their police department, help better how the department can be for the community they swore to protect, I would say get into it. And yes, you have to like dogs. So take care of yourself and God bless.